time for Hey, I'm Talking Here with Frankie Corrado.
TSN NHL analyst Frankie Corrado, one of our favorites, joins us now to talk about the Four Nations face-off. And Frankie, Canadian head coach John Cooper already messing with the lines. He moves Nathan MacKinnon to the second line between Sidney Crosby and Mark Stone. You know MacKinnon loves playing with Crosby, but my question for you, Frankie, is do you like the move?
I do. I like the fact that these guys are going to play together, have them as a pair. And listen, we hear all the time about, the Cole Harbour, the connection there, the training in the summer. These guys go out to Colorado. Like, it's going to be interesting to get a peek behind the curtain as far as how these guys push each other, the chemistry that they would already have on the ice. So I have no problem with all that. I think this is a great move by John Cooper, but moving Nathan MacKinnon to the middle of the ice probably makes a little more sense than having him on the wing where, he's a player who wants to have the puck down the middle with the speed. You can make the argument that he's been the best center iceman in the NHL this season. So I don't know if it necessarily makes sense to have him on the wing, but this is something that does have to be noted when it comes to John Cooper. Now, I've called 3 Tampa versus Montreal games this season in the building. And when you call the games, you're looking to see, okay, what's he doing as far as line tinkering, who's coming over the boards, and he throws his lines into like a little bit of a blender earlier in the game. He'll find some extra ice time for someone. Like, he does keep the other coach, the opposition, on his toes a little bit with how he deploys things. So I wouldn't be surprised if we see a little bit of a mishmash here as far as who's center, who's wing, who's getting spotted here, who's getting spotted there. But having MacKinnon and Crosby together, getting a peek behind what they do and train together, all that kind of stuff is going to be really cool to see.
I agree. It's awesome to have the Cole Harbour boys on the same line. It was interesting. We talked to Marty Biron yesterday, Frankie, and he said he assumed that Adin Hill would be Canada's starter just based on the fact that he had played the best of the 3 goaltenders going into the tournament, and yet John Cooper kind of throws a little curveball at us on Tuesday and names Jordan Binnington as Canada's starter for the tournament. Do you think that's the right call?
I do. There's a certain confidence. There's something between the ears that Jordan Binnington has, and maybe we've seen it at times go overboard, but the fact remains, this is a guy that when he's at his best is really tough to beat and has uber confidence, and I think that's going to do him well playing in a tournament like this. And I would put it to you this way, okay? There have been times, especially when St. Louis won a Stanley Cup, Jordan Binnington, yes, was unbeatable, but he was driving a Ferrari, okay? The team in front of him was really good. They obviously reached the pinnacle. They win a cup. For the last little bit, he's been driving your everyday car. You know what I mean? Like, it's your get you from point A to point B type vehicle. That's what the St. Louis Blues have been in front of him. Now he gets the Rolls Royce again. Like, what does that do for his confidence? Something that is already an asset, already an attribute for him. I just think he's one of those guys is very determined, and put him in a situation where he's going to have the best players in front of him playing the best systems, all that kind of stuff. That could go a long way for Jordan Binnington, and mentally, I think Jordan Binnington is the most well prepared to handle the big moment of these big games.
Plus, he's probably one of the only goaltenders we've ever had in best-on-best, Frankie, who might actually fight the other goaltender in a best-on-best tournament, which might be an advantage for us, just from an intimidation perspective. Okay, let's talk about Sweden and Finland. And I asked Marty about this yesterday too, Frankie. He thought of the 2 countries that Sweden had the best chance for an upset in this tournament. Do you agree? Do you think either of these teams has a chance for an upset?
Sweden would have the better chance for the upset, and if they do, it's going to be based on who they lean on the back end. Like, they have a lot of really good defensemen back there. Where they're going to struggle is driving play down the middle of the ice. Like, Mika Zibanejad hasn't had the best season for New York, especially at 5-on-5. Same goes for Elias Pettersson. Now, all of a sudden, like, how are those guys matching up against Eichel, Matthews, against McDavid, McKinnon? Like, It's not a great matchup for Sweden, but the bedrock of their team is going to be built on excellent goaltending and really good defensemen, guys that can shut things down. You think about what Mattias Ekholm has done for the Edmonton Oilers. You know, a guy like Jonas Brodin, he kind of flies under the radar, but is a good shutdown guy. Victor Hedman, it goes without saying what he can do on any given night. That's going to be what helps Sweden the most, and so it would lead me to believe that, if you get into a situation where you're playing Canada or the U.S., it's going to have to be a low-scoring game. They're going to have to find some opportunistic scoring, and they're going to have to lean on their goaltending. As far as Finland goes, Jay, their D-core for Finland is thin by NHL standards.
Yeah.
And it doesn't help that Heiskanen can't play, Ristolainen can't play, but that's the reality is now they've had, substitute players that have had to jump in, and it's that's thin by NHL standards. What are we talking about when it comes to best on best standards? That's ultimately, that could be the thing that sinks them the most. So, out of Finland and Sweden, I think it's a no-brainer that Sweden is the better of the two and the one that would have the better chance of competing with Canada and the U.S.
Okay, Frankie, here's the ultimate question, one we will hold you to through the entire tournament. Who will win the Four Nations face-off?
Canada is going to win, and it's going to be close, but the loss of Quinn Hughes for the United States is, I think, massive. That guy impacts the game in such a massive way. He has the puck so much in so many, threatening situations. He can facilitate so much for what the forwards need to do. Now, they're still going to be in a good place with the players that will fill the void. But you take away that player with that kind of impact, that is going to help Canada. And Canada doesn't need that much more help in order to win this tournament. There's a lot of firepower. Canada's so well built. I don't think the goaltending is going to be an issue because of who's going to be playing in front of it. And I could very well see Canada winning this tournament.
We will find out how Canada looks on Wednesday night when they open the tournament against Sweden in Montreal at the Bell Centre. This, ladies and gentlemen, is Frankie Corrado.